Hey guys, what's up? So I was just watching season 4 of Wynonna Earp, and I've been waiting for this for a long time because Netflix, for the longest time, have only had seasons 1 till 3. And what's interesting about this series is that I was never into the whole Wild West thing, and it is a Wild West supernatural fantasy. And I was never into the whole Wild West thing. I was never into the cowboys, the Indians, or whatever. I was never into all that stuff. I was never into the westerns, and this is a Wild West supernatural series, and it's a mixture of monsters, supernatural powers, magic, vampires, werewolves, witches, angels, demons. We're talking about like devils. We're talking about like every possible monster. There's a genie in there in season 4. There's a ton. There's something called a Reaper, which is as far as I know a monster that they invented. There's the usual, Wynonna killing demons with Peacemaker, her magic gun, basically. So what Peacemaker is? It's a magic gun that was Wyatt Earp's old gun. Now, Wyatt Earp was a back in the day old Wild West sheriff, a very popular one, like a famous one. And there was not a lot of like famous Wild West people. There was Billy the Kid. There was that one. There was Doc Holliday, which was also he's like a really good character in the series, and I think he really does tie this into that this is a western. And what's interesting about this series is that like I was never into westerns before. I was always like, you know what, westerns, yeah, it's not my thing. I don't really like that. I wasn't into country music too much like that. But this is such a cool western, and I was into the whole like. What got me into it was the whole. What got me into it is the whole supernatural thing, the whole fantasy genre aspect part of this series. And this is about 80% fantasy, 20% Western. Yes, it happens in a Western town, in Western America, but the whole town is cursed. Everything else is supernatural. Everything else to do with magic. There's magic items, there's magic weapons, there's weird magic beings and people and stuff like that. There's rings that make people immortal. There's lots of interesting things in this story, and it just keeps going. It keeps going. It gets weird. It gets weird, but it gets entertaining. It gets like, it's not that it gets weird. It just gets strange and cool at the same time. And there's that constant thing in this, which is all, monster hunting, monster killing, demon hunters, demons against people, humans against demons. People with supernatural powers, all kinds of magic. It's such a cool. It's a fantasy, but it's a fantasy that takes place. It's like an urban fantasy, like a modern day fantasy. It's a fantasy that takes place in the modern day Wild West. And what really makes this the Wild West is Doc Holliday. He makes this the Wild West completely. Like he was a gunslinger that was a friend of Wyatt Earp's at the time, and he survived by making a deal with a witch to become immortal. But then the witch tricked him and like threw him into a well. So he spent 100 years at the bottom of a well, and he finally got out. And now he's a character in the series, and he's pretty popular, powerful, and stuff like that. So, in the previous seasons, he became a vampire because he wanted eternal life. He lost the ring, and he was no longer immortal, and he wanted eternal life. So he met his friend, who was his girlfriend at the time in the old Wild West, and she turned him into a vampire. And then he decided, well, and then like in season 4, it's really interesting that he turns back into a human, which is really cool. It's really cool. It's not much of a spoiler that he turns back into human, because I was thinking that he's gonna turn back into a human. You can't become a vampire. But these are the risks that the show takes. There's so many risks. There's so many changes in characters. They kill off some of the characters. One of the main characters, which is this guy, I think his first name was Xavier, and his last name is Dawes, and he was basically a agent from this kind of a supernatural investigative department of the American government called Black Badge Division. And and in season like somewhere between season like 1 and 3, he did like 2 good seasons. I think in season 3 or maybe season 2, but like into the story he dies. They kill off his character, and he was a main character. He was one of the main characters in the whole thing. And it's interesting because first he was a human, then they realized he was some other monster, and then it's weird because like some people they are human and then they become monsters and then they become humans again. There's curses, there's magic going on all over the place, and you don't know what what occult thing is going to happen next because they go all over the board. There's enchantments, there's magic books, there are creatures who are guardians of there's like magical lands and worlds that you can like appear in. There's time travel where Wynonna goes back into the old Wild West. So there's just so much fantasy in it, and it just feels like, yeah, it happens in the old Wild West, but it's not a Western really. It's like a modern day fantasy, basically. It's just not a Western. It happens in a Western town, but there's some Western aspects of it. Like, like Doc Holliday is actually an old gunslinger. He's like an element of the old Wild West. There's also the location of it, which is a town called Purgatory in the Ghost River Triangle. And it's a cursed town. Basically, everyone in there is cursed, and there's demons that are cursed to stay there forever. There's Wynonna Earp, who's an heir of Wyatt Earp, and she bears the gun and she destroys all of these demons. And it's kind of like the curse, where these demons come at her and she kills them, and then they come at her and she kills them, and this keeps happening and stuff like that. So that's kind of how the story started. And then like every episode that you're in it goes into it's just like every episode that you're into, it just becomes like more and more action. There's fighting, there's shooting, there's a lot of action, and there's the occult, the supernatural, the fantasy, magical powers and spells and things like that. And every episode, there's like a spell happening. There's something happening. There's a monster coming after them. There's witches who are putting curses or controlling monsters to come after them and stuff like that. And it does a lot of fighting. Like Wynonna Earp is an action character, and there's a lot of fighting between her and monsters and stuff like that. And what's interesting is like sometimes these demons coexist with people, and other times they don't. It's like, it's interesting because like the people in the town, they're okay with the demons as long as the demons don't try to kill them or like attack them or anything like that. But Wynonna is not okay with that. If that's a demon, she wants to kill it. And those demons cannot get killed by any normal weapon, except for Peacemaker, Wyatt Earp's gun that got passed on through the generations to Wynonna Earp. So that's really cool. What's cool about season 4 is it's a continuation of more of the same, basically. So if you liked season 1, 2, and 3, check out season 4 because it's on Netflix right now and it just came out, and people are like interested in it now. I noticed like a lot of people are like, like looking into like Wynonna Earp, and I was really excited about it. Like when I saw that Wynonna Earp is gonna be like season 4 is coming out, and the reason that I was waiting for it to come out on Netflix is because I am not watching it. I think it's on Sci-Fi usually or something like that. I am not watching it with commercials. There's just no way. I'm gonna wait until it gets on Netflix and then I'll watch it with no commercials because I am not watching it. It's just too good. It's just too good of a series and too good of a story to watch it with annoying commercials. I can't stand any commercials like that. That's why I couldn't watch like John Constantine, Hellblazer. Constantine was another series that was a comic book, and by the way, Wynonna Earp was also a comic book, and this was a comic book, and then they got a character for it, they made a series, they put it on TV, and I watched the first pilot episode, and it's full of commercials, and it's distracting as hell, and I don't want to see it. So I waited till season 4 got on Netflix to watch it on Netflix, because that's kind of how I saw season 1, 2, and 3. And I was never into Westerns, and it's the weirdest thing, because I thought it was a Western, because it felt like a Western. It felt like Wynonna Earp. Okay, well, I heard of Wyatt Earp. I was like, is that have to do with Wyatt Earp, or is this a completely different story? What is it? And in the first episode, they explain what it is. And, you know, she's an heir of Wyatt Earp. She's got his gun. And what really, and I saw this on Netflix like for a little while. I was like, could see the little thumbnail on the Netflix, and I was like, should I see this? Should I watch this? Is this gonna be good? And yeah, I wasn't into the whole Wild West, but because it's a fantasy and like an urban fantasy, modern fantasy kind of genre of series, that really drew me in, and I really loved it. I mean, they've got the Black Badge division that investigates all of this supernatural stuff, but they're weird and they're kind of a loose cannon where they don't just investigate these paranormal things, they will destroy a town just to get rid of any demons. You know, they don't want demons running around amok. You know, so they will take a town, they will like evacuate all the people and just destroy it. They will bomb it with missiles, you know, just to kill all the demons and stuff like that. Thing is, you know, you can't really kill the demons with missiles. You can't kill them with anything except Wynonna's gun. So, previous episodes, she loses the gun, it turns into a sword, basically, loses the gun, ends up trapped in another dimension. And that's how they left off season 3. That was like the end of season 3. She lost her gun, gets trapped in another dimension. And what's interesting about like her losing her gun is she's completely vulnerable to these demons. She's been hunting these demons all this time. The only thing they're afraid of is the gun, because it's the only thing that can kill them. So she loses the gun, and the demons hear about it. Now they're coming after her because they know that she's defenseless, basically. I mean, she can still kick their ass, but can't really permanently kill them because no gun. So in season 4, she finds her gun. She gets together with Doc Holliday, what do you call it? Nicole and Waverly get hitched. They get married. There's a lot of interesting stuff. There's a lot of gay stuff in it too. There's a lot of gay stuff, like Nicole Hott and Waverly Earp, and they get married in a lesbian wedding. The other kid, Jeremy, he's gay, and then he always meets other gay people, and he's always like hitting on Doc Holliday, who's not really gay, I don't think, because he's an old Wild West gunslinger, so he's not really that way. He's more straight in the series because he's getting with Wynonna. There's all of this like sex happening between everyone. There's like straight sex, gay sex. There's all kinds of like sex happening with everyone in it, which is interesting because like I like the fact that I think this is something interesting in whenever you look at a story in a successful movie. There's something where a lot of successful movies, they all have a love story, a really passionate love story that's important in the movie. And this has it. You know, it's got love stories between everybody. You know, between Nicole and Waverly, between Wynonna and Holliday, just like and just there's random characters that pop up, and there's like sex and romance between them. And if you look at like all of the best movies, they had romance. I mean, they weren't romantic movies. They weren't like romantic comedies or romantic movies, but they had like a romance, a thing of it that was like romance drives a movie. It makes it great. You know, if you ever like remember the movie Ghost, what was it about? It was about ghosts, right? But it was actually about a romance, wasn't it? Like Back to the Future, was it about time travel? No, it was about a romance. You know, it was around a romance, you know, trying to get these two people together in a romance so the future doesn't happen. You know, all of these things like Conan the Barbarian, romance. He gets romantically tied to the girl gives up her life to save him. Romance. And these are great stories, great movies, and you know, the common thing, I feel there's so many good movies that just like the thing about them is they have a romance, you know. Not all of them. I mean, some movies are like stand on its own for whatever like fantasy, but I really like the whole fantasy Wild West thing, because I never thought that, you know, a saloon would be cool, but a saloon is cool, you know. And yeah, and this is a Wild West fantasy. There's a lot of whiskey drinking. There's sort of like that kind of there's also a vibe, because all of these people are basically living in this Wild West town. There's revisions, they're going back. They always go back to the Wild West because all of this, the whole story started in the Wild West. There was the shootout at the OK Corral, which started this feud between the Earps and those other ones, the something cow somethings, whatever they call them. But there was a feud between Earps and this other family, and there was a shootout at the OK Corral, and there was like, they were like basically, they wanted vengeance against each other. They created a feud. It created tension, and now like, God, I forgot the name, but so this other family sends these demons against the Earps, against Waverly and Wynonna, and they have to stop the demons and all kinds of stuff, and it just keeps happening that way. It just keeps like going on and on about that, because it's like these demons come after them, and it's just like one demon after another monster after another monster. And some of the demons are like intelligent and smart and good characters. They did kill off a couple of the demons, the main characters. Like in season 1, 2, and 3, there was the guy Bobo, who basically was the leader of the demons, and they killed him off or something, or they got rid of him. But so it's interesting, like when a series does that or a movie does that they just like get rid of characters, main characters that are like important in the story. When they just get rid of those characters, it's like you never know who they're gonna kill off and who they're gonna introduce. Because in season 4, there was this little girl, forgot her name also, but it's just names of these series, but whatever. But no, there's a little girl who, her last name is Valdez, and they find her at the Black Badge Division like headquarters or installation somewhere around the area where they live, when they have to go there because they're trying to find the door into this other parallel dimension to get their friends back. So they find her, and she joins the team, and she's like only 17 years old, and she becomes part of that team. Her boyfriend turns into this Reaper, which is this demon that gets sent by his mother, who's a witch, to kill like whatever target. Like I think they send her against Waverly, and then they send her against Wynonna. And these Reapers, basically, they don't stop until they kill their target, and there's just no stopping them and stuff like that. But they actually, of course, they stop them, and it's just interesting, like the different worlds they enter. And every episode is full of this action, full of this weirdness, full of like, they're in this world, and this is what's happening. There's this spell going on, and there's like this monster, and then there's this magical item, and this is like magical weapon that they need to conquer this magic demon or whatever it is. And it's just so full of fantasy. It's so full of the occult. It's so full of the supernatural. It's got more supernatural than the series Supernatural. Because Supernatural is like one monster at a time, In this series, it's just constant monsters, and there's stories behind the monsters. Like there's the way things go. Like some monsters get killed, some don't. Some keep coming back to them. Some just leave and then they come back. You never know what character is going to get killed off. You never know what character is going to leave the story. You never know what character is going to be introduced into the story. And so everything is different. The only constant characters that's been in the story is Wynonna Earp and Waverly Earp, the two Earp sisters. But who they are and their story changes a lot. Like basically Wynonna is always Wynonna, but Waverly, she changes a lot. She changes from human. She finds out her father is an angel, so she's part angel, and and when Doc Holliday tries to like bite her, because he's a vampire at the time, like he becomes a vampire for a while, he basically drinks angel blood and then becomes it does something to him and makes them like really nuts. It makes him like want, it's like he shouldn't have done that, but whatever. It just makes him nuts and stuff like that. And it's real interesting. It's real cool because there's constant changes in the story. It's not the same. It's not predictable. Every episode is different. Like if you look at like stories like Merlin, it's like every episode is the same. The other story is different, but all the characters are the same. They act the same things happen between the characters. The same characters, like no characters get introduced or like get killed off or anything. Everything's the freaking same. And in Wynonna Earp, everything is different. Like every episode, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to be introduced, what character is going to be there. You don't know what characters are gonna like leave the series. You don't know why they're gonna leave the series. Are they actually gonna leave? Are they gonna get killed off? What's gonna happen? And what's cool about this is it's constant weirdness. It's constant crazy freaking like spells and magic and the occult and like incantations and cursed items. It was a cursed wedding dress, which makes the person that wears it a serial killer that like kills everyone at their wedding when the wedding comes up. A cursed wedding dress that makes people kill, like whoever wears it, kill everyone at their wedding. Something like that. And so yeah, God, it's just so much action, and it's really original. Like it's not like it's not something you've seen before. It's original. It's Wild West fantasy, urban fantasy story. You've never seen this before. They've never put the Wild West and fantasy together ever. I've never seen that ever happen. There was a movie called Wild Wild West, but it really wasn't fantasy in Wild West. It was more like sci-fi in Wild West, but it was mainly Wild West with just a bunch of like gadgets and inventions and stuff like that. So yeah. But anyway, let me know what you guys think of the series. If you've seen the series, if like you've seen all of the series, or if you've seen one to season 4, what you're thinking about it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching all the way to the end too. So thanks, guys. And yeah, please like and subscribe. Enjoy the video. Enjoy my videos. I have more videos. Check out those. And I'll see you guys in another video. Take care.